Thank you. Well, as Carol stated, my name is Susan Ida Boucaud, and we both co-produced this. And so when it came up to the time of Her Voice Returns, Strong Women, I was walking around one day thinking about this. What do I associate strong women with? What are strong women like? And as I'm walking around on that day, I have a hat on my head. I have a scarf around my neck. I have my coat on. I have my gloves on. I have boots. It is a wintry day. And I'm looking out over the whole surface of the land. And what do I see? I see some snowdrops in bloom. Here are these snowdrops in bloom, and I've got everything around me to protect myself from the temperature. And that's when it clicked in my brain. Strong women are like snowdrops. Oh yes, they are. These snowdrops, you know, they're little white flowers. I mean, they're only maybe 3 to 6 inches, you know, that's about it. They exist in temperatures that are like 20 Fahrenheit, which is around 6 Celsius, though they can't grow in -30 Fahrenheit, which is around -22 or so Celsius. No, but in between those temperatures, they grow. And in defiance of everything around them, they grow and they bloom. Strong women, you know, like those snowdrops, they are in a land, but it's a patriarchal land. Huh? That's where they grow. That's where they start, is in this patriarchal land. And then they move through that land, that soil, and they break through that patriarchal landscape. Oh, those snowdrops, those strong women, they do that. And regardless of the elements, those snowdrops, those strong women, they break through the patriarchal landscape and then also through the wintry snow. And then in defiance of everything, they bloom. They come to their purpose. They implement their purpose. Oh yes, strong women are like snowdrops. In 1868, Louise McKinney was born. And a year before her birth, well, Emily Stowe was the first Canadian woman to practice medicine. And it's unknown whether Louise wanted to be a doctor because of Emily. That part is unknown. But what it is known is that she wanted to be one. But she never did. She became a teacher instead. And she became a teacher in the area of Ontario. There was farmland. And she stayed there for a few years teaching. And then she decided to join her sister, who was married, living in North Dakota. And so off she went to North Dakota. And that's where she was introduced to the Women's Christian Temperance Union. Now, this union, oh my heavens, this union, you talk about snowdrops blooming, oh yes. They were for the prohibition of alcohol. Because alcohol in their minds was associated, the abuse of it was associated with the lack of protection and the vulnerability of women, being beaten, placed in the sex trade, and so on. And so they wanted to make sure that alcohol, that there was a prohibition. By 1888, they weren't getting that much. They weren't going that far. So what they decided is that they were going to join with the women's suffrage movement. Those women who were for the vote. Yes, you did hear that right. Back then, women, large portion, didn't have the vote. No, they did not. Now, Louise, when she was down there, she met somebody by the name of James McKinney, and she took his last name, which was the custom at that time. And they left there, North Dakota, and off they went to Ontario. And from Ontario, they went to Claire's home. At that time, it was the Northwest Territories, which eventually became Alberta. She had a lot of organizational skills. Within a mere 10 years, it is said that she created over 40 chapters of the Women's Christian Temperance Union. Incredible. In 1911, she was somewhere in her 40s about that time, she compared the women getting the vote to women's being protected in their home. She saw a direct link there. Oh, she was a force to contend with. She was. She also, deeply religious, as was her husband, James McKinney, who she married, advocated for women to be ministers. Incredible, just an incredible time. But having said all of that, there was a part to her in terms of sterilization. At that time, there was this view that people who are not within the norm should be sterilized. And so she was part of that movement, though it's unknown whether she was for mandatory sterilization. That we don't know. But she not only advocated for women to become ministers in her church, she also decided to get involved in politics. Because you see, in 1916, women were permitted to vote. Oh, all of those snowdrops, they were breaking ground for sure. And Louise decided to run. And wouldn't you know, she got in. She got in overwhelmingly in terms of the vote. And how she did it is that she knew that the main parties were not for the prohibition of alcohol. She knew that. And so what she did is she joined an independent party. And of course, the women were supporting it. And she had the Women's Christian Temperance Union, and she had the women's suffrage movement. And so she got in it. She did a lot of good in those 4 years that she was there. She was one of the people responsible for the Dowers Act. I mean, before this, women, they didn't get part of their deceased husband's proceeds. I mean, whatever money was left over or from their husbands, well, it usually went to the first son. And so now it was illegal to do that. Women had to have some of the proceeds when their husband died. So there were a lot of things that she was involved in. She was, because she got voted in, one of the first women to be part of Parliament. Not only in Alberta, no, in the whole of the British Empire. Because you see, Canada was under England in those days. Yes, they were. Now, just so you can get a little bit of a sense in terms of this patriarchal landscape that these snowdrops were blossoming in and breaking through, in 1909, there was a law. And the law stated that it was now illegal to kidnap women. You see, before that law, there was no repercussions in terms of kidnapping women, unless it was an heiress, of course. But then again, if you stole a cow, your fine was more, yes, than stealing an heiress, kidnapping an heiress. So, I mean, these were the times. Property, the body, the property. And these were the times these women broke through that patriarchal landscape. Now, there was a person by the name of Emily Murphy. Now, Emily Murphy decided that she was one of the first magistrates, for again, in the whole British Empire, a woman, Canadian woman, again, strong women. And Emily decided that she wanted to run for the Senate. But the boys, they looked at her. I mean, this is not, a direct quote, but I could just hear them. I could just hear them say, what are we going to do about this Emily Murphy? She wants to go for the Senate. I don't think. And they kind of all got together and they said to her, well, we're not going to consider you for the Senate because, like in the British North America Act, the law, the land. In the British North America Act, it doesn't really state that women are persons. So, no, we won't. Well, obviously, there were 5 women by now that were involved. They were called the famous 5. There was Irene Pallaby and Nellie McClellan, as Carol had stated. There was Henrietta Muir Edwards. There was, of course, Louise, and there was Irene. Oh no, I said Irene Pallaby. So the other one would be Emily Murphy. Yes. So they all kind of got together, these famous 5, and they sought clarification. And the Supreme Court of Canada gave it to them. And they said, no, women are legally not persons for this purpose. They're not. Well, those snowdrops, they may be small, but they're mighty. They don't kind of come out of the ground, thick and brazen. No, but small but mighty. And so what these 5 did is they went and they appealed the decision. And who do they appeal it to except the highest court of appeal, which was the London Privy Council, British Privy Council. And so they, in 1929, now Louise is in her 60s now, right? So she has bared all of this prior to her. So the London says, yes, women are persons. Absolutely, they are persons. And so women got to go for the Senate. Now, Louise, she passed when she was 63. She was always involved. She only spent 4 years in that parliament position, the elected position. Though she did a lot of good, and as I shared, she continued to do good, trying to get women to be ministers and so on. And just on the same year that she passed, she was voted in to be the vice president of the World Christian Temperance Union. She was going strong right to the very, very end of her life. She was an incredible, incredible person. There was, what was it? Maybe 7, 8 years later, around there, the Canadian government named her, it was the Persons of National Historic Significance, which is nice. Yeah, I agree. That's a nice title. And then after that, she got her picture on a $50 bill and on a Canadian postage stamp, which is all very nice. And there are little foundations and, different acknowledgements that even though she passed are still being forwarded to her. I mean, you can go and see the famous 5. There's a statue just near the Parliament buildings at the mall, sitting around, having tea, and Louise is there. But in 2009, what happened is that the Senate voted to make all 5 of them, including Louise, honorary senators. Isn't that just brilliant? I thought it was just absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So there we are. Women like snowdrops. The thing about snowdrops, it's an interesting thing about snowdrops, is that for the majority of humans and animals, not all, but the majority, if they eat a snowdrop, they will get very, very ill. You don't mess around with snowdrops. No. Not only that, but snowdrops are not dependent from outside planting into the soil. They're perennials, which means that they grow. They have the ability to create themselves. Oh, yes, they do. Yes, they do. And it's my hope that all the past snowdrops, like even before Louise's time, during Louise's time, after Louise's time, that they provide an evidence to all of us of the possibility of blooming in this patriarchal landscape. And so I say to all of us, let us bloom. Indeed, let us bloom. Thank you.